Hands off Brandi Grayson. Hands off the Black women that are doing the work.
This is Stephanie Díaz de León.
This is Nicholas Garton.
This is Omar Waheed.
And this is Rob Chappell.
And it's 365 Amplified. Shout out to Rob for trying to control us because we were not paying attention and listening as he was trying to start this podcast and telling us to stop talking so we can get it onto the podcast.
As a notable artist who we don't listen to anymore said, I can't be managed.
We're not the managed type, Rob. Sorry.
That's why I was just waiting.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to try to tell you, stop chit chat so we can do this podcast. I was
just save it for the podcast.
I just have my finger hovering over the button.
You did, though.
For a moment of silence so we can quick hit record.
We have other tools. Remember in elementary school?
The clap?
Clapping.
Yeah, we could have clapped us.
Clap once if you can hear me.
Uh-huh.
Well, I'm older, so bunny ears, fox ears, whatever, listening ears.
Oh, what is that?
When the teacher put up two fingers, those are your bunny ears that you're supposed to use to listen.
Oh, that is generational. I've never heard.
That's how teachers got us to listen in 1979.
Wow, you all must have been subdued with something because I don't think bunny ears would work with me. No.
It was a more docile generation.
I don't know. You all messy right now.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and move. We have a lot to talk about. So let's go ahead and move into the first story we want to talk about this morning, Rob, from Madison365.org.
Well, first let's acknowledge the big story we're going to talk about in a little bit, so folks don't tune out. That there's, as people might know from if they're paying attention to social media, there's kind of a mess is maybe not the right word, but discourse regarding Urban Triage, Brandi Grayson, and other folks that we're going to talk about. And we're going to have former County Board Supervisor and Urban Triage Board Chair Dana Pellebon on in the second half of the show. So we'll get to that. That's going to require some discussion.
Yes.
Right? But there's a couple other news items we want to mention first. The first of which is happening tonight. So get on top of it if you're listening to this on Friday. There's the birthday celebration for the late Clyde Stubblefield. And Omar, you talked to Joey Banks.
I did talk to Joey Banks. If you don't know Joey Banks, he was the mentee of Clyde Stubblefield and one of the few people who can give a real intimate story about the legendary drummer who goes largely unappreciated a lot.
So unappreciated.
Very. I was surprised at some of the things that Joey told me about sampling the Powerpuffs Girls theme song.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Is that the Funky Drummer that they sampled? Is that
Yeah.
Funky Drummer was a James Brown song that on which Clyde Stubblefield played. He is literally the Funky Drummer, and that riff has been sampled literally thousands of times.
Yeah.
So many.
And Clyde Stubblefield never got paid.
Never got paid.
Oh, he didn't get paid?
No.
It was all stolen from him.
Yeah. Well, in honor of that large unrealized legacy, he will have a birthday tribute celebration at High Noon Saloon. If you don't know, that also happens to be the last place where Clyde Stubblefield celebrated his birthday in Madison. Yeah, he's been here since the 70s. He is a small town cat. He's described as someone who would play just for a ham sandwich and a joint. So,
I love it.
If you want to see the legacy of the man and hear some of his music from cover bands, the celebration will be tonight at 6 p.m. The doors open. The concert will start at 7. Proceeds from the benefit concert, the birthday tribute, will go to a scholarship in Stubblefield's name, which is currently managed by the Madison Area Music Association that helps students all over the country go to university to study music. So go out to High Noon Saloon tonight.
And say happy birthday, Clyde.
Say happy birthday to Clyde.
One other thing we want to mention is a sporting note, right? We talked about Con Cannibal. Am I saying that right?
Yeah,
Knippel.
Con Knippel,
Yeah, from
Wisconsin Lutheran High School,
and now Duke University, and now next.
to the NBA draft.
There he goes.
Oh.
I didn't know he was coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was speculation that
Yeah.
both he and Duke standout Cooper Flagg might return to Duke for another year because the deadline to enter the draft is coming up, and Flagg still has not declared for the draft, and he would be the number one pick in the draft.
Yeah.
So that's
yeah.
kind of crazy. But Knippel, after leading Wisconsin Lutheran to an undefeated championship season last year, was a standout during the NCAA tournament for Duke.
Got him all the way to the title game.
To the Final Four within a hair's breadth of the title game.
Right.
round.
It was a great
Final Four.
game.
It was,
Yeah.
That's right. I was thinking that was the actual final that they lost
No.
To Houston.
to Houston, but it was you're right, it was the semifinal.
So I was on the phone with Knippel's high school coach, Ryan Walls, who was talking about Con and dropped the dime to me that he was entering the NBA draft. So that he's very excited about that.
I bet. When is the draft?
The draft is June 25th.
So wait, and
Yeah.
and we don't know the lottery hasn't happened yet or anything like that. You can tell I'm really out
Right.
on basketball.
Yeah,
was
no,
gonna say
you're fine.
So there's no. Is there any mock draft yet? That where he might is he a first rounder?
Every mock draft has him being picked in the first 10 picks.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
He would be like, maybe 7.
Okay.
He will do well, and it's a great recruitment for Wisconsin Lutheran that he's going to.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think he can belong in both places. He could join the NBA, but he could also go back to Duke and do really well. But I get why he might want to start. I mean, how do you not You will get picked well. It'll be an interesting couple of years, and it'll be interesting to see him in the NBA because I think he'll do well. But.
And stay tuned at Madison 365 because we're going to be doing a profile of the Knippel family coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yep.
Tried to get it done already, but their lives, believe it or not, are pretty crazy right now.
With so many tournaments,
They have 5 sons playing high-level youth basketball right now. I guess 4 since Khan's going to the NBA.
Yep.
But they're...
that's going to be a legacy to watch for the next few years.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm excited to see and watch that, and for us to continue to cover that and tell that story, because I think it's important. It's something impactful and amazing to watch and such. So I'm excited for that.
All 5 of them seem like they have NBA in their future,
there's no way there's
although
not.
their coach said Khan is one of one. So I don't know what that means, but we will.
That shade on the younger brothers? Is that?
I don't know.
Or challenge?
If I was the younger brother, that would be shade.
I
would
know.
be-
I
that
would
would
be
be
like, let's
motivation.
go. I'm going to show you what I can do.
Now,
That's
I
what
would print that out and put it on my locker.
or like in my room, and
Right.
to remind myself every morning.
New Ball family legacy type deal.
This is the Wisconsin ball family.
But without the head case dad who's super weird.
Yeah, what happened to him?
Exactly.
Yeah, he just needed to be just as famous as they did, and that just, I don't know, that just seemed...
Yeah.
And we can have that here in Wisconsin too. Watch out.
No, I don't think they will.
They're Lutherans, so probably not.
No.
Okay, right.
I don't know things about Lutherans, but to me,
That means they don't go on TV and act like LeVar Ball.
well, we can find out. We'll see.
Generally speaking.
Well, I'm just excited to hear the story about these kids and as they go through
Yeah.
the process of continuing to grow and play and such, because they look amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to follow that legacy a little bit here and to watch in real time. I mean, it's an opportunity, y'all. Like, you don't often get those opportunities to see a family,
Right.
in that one generation, to watch that legacy kind of build and see where everybody goes and such. And what it'll be interesting, absolutely, and fascinating.
Yep. In a few minutes, Dana Pellebon will join us to talk about Urban Triage and Brandi Grayson and the discourse.
Exhausting discourse.
The
Discourse.
let's set the table a little bit before
Sure.
we talk to Dana. That basically that there was an article in Channel 3000 by Jason Cuevas, which the thrust of which was that County Supervisor Jeff Wigand is upset about the contract that Urban Triage has with the county. I think there's a couple of contracts, aren't there, Nick? Like they have a couple of county contracts that they work on, Urban Triage.
They receive money to do housing navigation and housing rental assistance.
I think I'm not 100%
in the county.
Maybe Dana can tell us, but I think that housing navigation stuff, I think it's a couple of different contracts. But basically, the bottom line is that they help when people come to the county for assistance. They help people find housing outside the city of Madison. Right, a different organization does housing navigation and support within the city of Madison. Urban Triage helps people find housing outside the city of Madison in Dane County. And there's a lot of money that passes through Urban Triage, right? That it's not that they keep necessarily, but like the county gives them money, which then they use to pay rent for folks. Like they manage the county housing support. That and Brandi Grayson, who has been well known in the community as a going back to Young, Gifted, and Black, 10, 12 years ago. She's been leading Black Lives Matter protests and Urban Triage as an organization she started, basically to support Black and brown people in Dane County, right? And now they do this housing contract. And Jeff Wigand, who is a conservative county board member from Marshall, who our readers and listeners might remember a year ago.
That's how I remember him.
Anthony Gray, in a county board meeting, asked, what do you mean when you say the root cause of homelessness? And Jeff Wigand stood up and said, sin is the root cause of homelessness. So that's the guy we're dealing with, right?
Yeah.
Iconic moment in Madden's history.
That's the lens for which he is leading from, criticizing from, viewing things from, amongst other lenses here.
So he has an issue with, he has an issue with Brandi, because Brandi, in his mind, is quote unquote reverse racist or whatever.
So he has an issue with Black women.
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. And he certainly has an issue with a Black woman leading an organization and making a decent salary at that organization. And he's been calling for an audit, and he's been doing that whole thing. Well, like, if you have nothing to hide,
sir, same, ditto,
right? But basically, any contract that the county signs that's worth over $100,000 is supposed to be approved by the full county board. So a contract less than $100,000 can be approved by a committee, right? The initial contract with Urban Triage, or one of the initial contracts with Urban Triage, was less than $100,000. So it was approved by the Health and Human Needs Committee. But then there was an addendum to the contract that the interim director of the Human Needs Department, Human Services Department put on it that put it over $100,000. So that upset Jeff Wigand. That's not what upset Jeff Wigand, okay? That's what he's grabbing onto to say we have to drag Brandi in front of the county board and whatever.
Yeah.
So that was reported by Channel 3000. And also in that Channel 3000 story, there was a strange scrutiny of Brandi's LinkedIn profile. Like half of the article was comparing the resume, because when you get a county contract, basically you submit your CEO's resume with it. You
submit everybody's resumes who might be working
basically everybody who's going to work on this contract. When you bid for the contract, here are the people who'll be working on it, and that's part of the decision. Here are the resumes. Right. And so Jason Cuevas from Channel 3 got a hold of Brandi's resume.
Because it's public record, because it was a county bid.
Yes. And then compared that to her LinkedIn.
Which is, look, y'all.
Which is not official.
It's not an official thing. It's a version of social media. It's social media. Yeah. And it is, it's interesting, right? Nobody has looked at anybody else's LinkedIn. I mean, like, did he also look at the county board's LinkedIn profile versus their resumes?
No.
Oh, okay. What about other people's, like, nonprofit leaders, like any nonprofit leader in Madison or Dane County?
No. And
okay, that's interesting. How many of us, including this person, update their LinkedIn like that? to match.
I don't even know my LinkedIn login.
I don't. I remember putting one in. I don't use it for that. I don't use it for my job. I use my LinkedIn for the most influential. So
right.
To look up to get more information, to like not to like. Here's the thing: not to compare and contrast information that we get. To get more information to help us make a decision about somebody,
right.
If we can find it. But it's not the only place we look for information, nor do we use it as like the only source of information, or also like a reflection of whether or not this person is worthy of something, because not a lot of people use their LinkedIn like that.
Right. But the Channel 3000 story basically was like, I don't remember all the dates, but you can look at it. But it's, LinkedIn says Urban Triage started in 2016, but her resume says she became CEO in 2018. Gotcha.
How was that a gotcha though?
It's not.
Because she may have created Urban Triage. Okay, I'm gonna be a little sassy. She could have created Urban Triage in terms of like a organic sort of ground level.
That's exactly what happened.
Without necessarily being a CEO yet, or calling herself a CEO, or recognizing the need for it to be a CEO.
Yeah,
just yet.
Urban Triage didn't get its 501c3 until she had been doing it for 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, because it takes a while to build the effort.
Everybody knows. So
why is that important?
It's only important to people who A, don't know Brandi, B, don't know the work that she's done, and C, don't know this community. And Jason, you hit all three of those.
And it also just doesn't know in general what a startup, whether it be a nonprofit or a business, is like.
Or was just looking for something
to catch. Because there wasn't enough like.
And I know as a reporter, like once you get down that rabbit hole, stuff feels really significant, even when it's not. But that's why an editor needed to be like,
I was saying,
sure this is significant?
But then you share it with other people, right? Like you said, like, hey, am I going the right direction, or is this fluff?
Yeah.
Oh, that's fluffy.
I will say,
name that bunny. 2
things. First of all, I put in a public records request for all the other resumes.
Oh, nice.
And it was denied.
Why?
It was too broad. There are too many. So I would read this. I gotta focus it a little bit.
Pick a couple of good people.
Yeah. I'll pick a few good ones.
4.
Just to see, because 100%, at least half of them are gonna have like at least one discrepancy on their LinkedIn. Second thing I'll say is that the Channel 3000 article did not allege any financial impropriety on part of Urban Triage, and it didn't even mention the financial problem they did have last year, which was relatively minor,
and which they themselves.
They caught it.
They caught it and said so.
Urban Triage said we have this specific rent support program. There's a relatively small portion of what they do that because of some accounting errors ran out of money in October instead of December. So there's
because they helped so many people.
I mean, they helped. There was so much need.
Right. It wasn't that somebody stole the money. It's
they just spent it before they thought they would.
Exactly. Yeah. So there was like a 3-month period when we don't have any more money for this particular program, and that was viewed as a big scandal. But this Channel 3000 story now that just came out last week didn't mention that at all.
So any financial.
There's no allegations that there's anything wrong other than Jeff Wigan
decides there's a concern here because it's Brandi.
Yeah.
Oh.
And because of the $100,000 threshold thing, which talk about that maybe.
Well, he did. Wigan said that what he is targeting here is waste, fraud, and abuse, and told me that any CEO of any nonprofit who says that they regret talking to a reporter because he's white doesn't deserve to be a CEO of an organization that they work with at the county and do contracts with.
Why?
Because it's racist and it's wrong. That was a direct quote from him.
Always be hesitant talking to a white reporter.
Always be hesitant.
Guys, whoever's talking to a white reporter, you know better.
I mean, like, I was like, or in everyday life. Like,
this goes back further than that. Yeah. So 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, I was at the Cap Times and I received a call from a man, Sean Burke, I'd never heard of, telling me all of the ills of Brandi Grayson, how racist she is, how she, sent me a video of her dressing down some white woman. That was awesome. I was like, this is great. Thank you for sharing that with me. But he then proceeded to tell me all of these things about how they have refused to give him housing assistance because he's white. Then when I challenged that, it was they'd refused to give him housing because he's gay. And then when I finally asked Brandi, she was like, no, it's because he verbally abused and harassed all my staff. And so we had to get rid of him and say, we're denying your thing. Leave us alone. Stop spamming us. Stop harassing us.
And I will say, I knew Sean about the same time, maybe a little bit earlier, because he was calling me about a different story about his sister getting evicted or something, and he had and the sheriff is in cahoots with this moving company to steal all their medicine or something, and it was, I never really pursued it because it was outside of our lane because they're all white, So I was like, and so he kept calling. He called me a whole bunch of times, and he called Cap Times a few times.
Not a few.
A lot about that, and then about Brandi, right? And so we're mentioning Sean here because it seems clear, and then what Brandi and Dana and Sabrina Madison also weighing in on this when you talk to them, basically that it's Sean Burke and Jeff Wigan kind of on a crusade against Brandi.
Well, Burke mostly, because all of this started with Burke's denial by Urban Triage. He then started harassing Brandi. He called me 10 times, sent me 15 emails minimum. The same with Allie Garfield.
And he kind of called everybody in the newsroom until somebody would pick up.
Yes,
right?
Who he would then spam until our editor, Mark Trinan, told him to stop. And Urban Triage sent him a cease and desist letter. So he then went to the county board drumming up support, found it from Jeff Wigan, found it from a couple other people probably. And he then was going to community leaders like Sabrina Madison saying, you got to help me. Sabrina told me that when she didn't then, I guess, have Brandi arrested for this, that Sean Burke started launching into a tirade against Sabrina and confronted her at various events, yelling at her. Sean Barnes told him to back off one of those times at one of those events.
Former police chief.
And he then ran against her in the spring election, bolstered by Paul Soglin and his band of black people like Sherry Carter and Isidore Knox, who I don't know what their angle is, but...
We don't have to give everyone the space, y'all. You don't have to affirm everybody every time. And go ahead.
Who is Sean Burke and what does he do? Has he ever been elected?
No.
He ran unsuccessfully for 2 things.
So he's just some guy.
Yeah.
Who is persistent and therefore it's easiest. And checks certain boxes.
I'm flattered that he thinks journalism is the place to go for help. I guess that he thinks these reporters will do it for me.
Well, they have though.
Yeah,
they have.
Well,
they made space.
He found
us.
people who did not know the background.
We don't always have to make space for folks.
We will say that the Jason Cuevas story at Channel 3000 doesn't quote Sean Burke, but it's clearly
doesn't
Sean
have
Burke.
to.
Right. Yeah, he does say it's a Madison resident who shared a recording of himself speaking with the county executive's staff. But it doesn't say what that recording contains.
Does not give context to the recording, but uses the recording as validation to validate what you were trying to...
Doesn't say that the county executive staff said anything about Brandi, just that there was a recording. So basically, Sean Burke, it seems, went to the county executive's office, talked to the chief of staff and the deputy chief of staff with his complaints and his grievances and recorded it and thinks that's evidence of something. Well,
and then we affirm it by putting it in a story or hinting or using it as some sort of evidence or thing that we can now base everything else on, right, which is against Brandi.
Why is Sean Burke speaking with the county board of supervisors for, frankly, just about any reason? Because I'm just finding out that he's just some guy. He's a guy who needed.
Right?
He's a guy who's been unhoused off and on, and needed assistance. Didn't get it from Brandi, who is from Urban Triage, who's a county contractor.
Yeah.
So he's going to the people who are paying Urban Triage to say you should stop paying Urban Triage because I am aggrieved.
And because she's a black woman who is outspoken, this
very
gets
easy.
traction. If she was the white man CEO of something getting the same contract, they'd have kicked Sean Burke out.
Then, right. But also, he is really just some guy. I'm really stuck on that part because I've assumed that he's been some
It's like
type
some
of
influential
position.
person. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know why he's, no offense to Sean Burke, quoted so often in so many things, and like people are talking to him so often.
But he's persistent because he keeps calling reporters until somebody who doesn't know who he is, and who may feel like they have found something good in talking about Brandi.
That's what happened. So he called Cap Times, and a reporter who has just moved here from Alaska, didn't know anyone in the community, picks it up. They had an editor who was brand new, who's from San Diego, who also didn't know what was going on. And they made this massive hit piece on Brandi. But who is not nobody is Nino Amato, who is also involved in this. Nino, who coached and mentored our boss, Henry Sanders, into what he is today, is what he told me yesterday. Tried to do the same with Brandi, but she wouldn't let him. And so he is also involved here.
Yeah. We should say
no comment.
Nino's involved because he's been around. I've known Nino more than 20 years. He was on the city council in the 70s, right? And he's also, we talked about him last week or the week before because he went shopping for districts to run in. Yeah, because,
even though he didn't live in those districts,
right?
Because that rule allows you. There's a rule that allows you to move into the district
at a certain time. Yeah. So he knew he couldn't win in District 19, so he decided to run in District 9 next door. He lost by 9 votes. That's a weird coincidence.
Yeah.
He lost District 9 by 9 votes. But anyway, but he's been around. He's been on tons of boards and things. Put a lot of time and effort into community leadership, etc. But he has been outspoken. He's emailed us a lot about Brandi, specifically in the last couple of years, about how this contract is a big problem and how Brandi is a big problem, and he takes it from this sort of concern trolling thing where he's like, I'm just concerned about Brandi. I just wish, if they could just get the audit done and clear their name. And I just want to coach Brandi. And I tried to coach Brandi, which started Young, Gifted, and Black. And I coached Henry, which I took as a veiled threat to you.
It wasn't veiled. He told me that he was now going to call Henry Sanders about all the defamation and awful things. Yeah. He went crazy because one of my sources said that he's Madison's version of MAGA. And I told him that, and he was like, Henry Sanders is going to sue and shut all of this down. And I was like, I am unconcerned with any retribution that happens here.
We didn't include that in the story because it's like, okay, that's just a Reddit insult.
Yeah.
Which is fine. But also, but then our colleague Dave talked with Henry because Nino then started to text us. They blew up my phone, blew up your phone, and every text and every email he sends us leads with, as a founding member of the NAACP of Dane County.
Oh, so what does that mean? Does that mean that you get a pass to do this? Because that's not how it works.
The founding member was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Right.
So
that's the political version of I Have Black Friends.
Yeah.
Right. Which is fine.
So Dave.
So Dave called Henry because he texted me and Henry and Dave and emailed us, and has also, we can ask Dana about this too, but has also been trying to get ahead of this story.
Yeah.
And Henry's like, what? Yeah, okay, I know who Nino is, I guess, but but he was also unconcerned.
Yeah.
So, wait, he didn't talk about all of the things that he knows today that he didn't before Nino coached him, mentored him?
Well, as the founding member of the NAACP.
I hope that's on someone's business card.
I hope that's also how Rachel Dolezal introduces herself.
Stephanie, what do you say to all of this? This is, I mean, we've thrown a lot of stuff out here.
I know. I'm overwhelmed by the level of, how do I say this? The entitlement is what I'm hearing a lot of. I feel entitled to this story being told in this way, through my lens only. And it is this, and what I'm hearing throughout is these men feeling like you all owe them. Brandi owes them. Urban Triage owes them. Nick, you owe them. Henry, you owe them. Everybody here owes them. No, we do not. We do not. Here's the thing, you all. Some of us can just do it without you, and we have done it before. And I think the concern is that, Brandi just is going to do this without you all. With or without you all. Like, great if you're, but please understand the boundaries for which you're going to do it with her if you would like to be part of it. Or she's just going to do it, and not just her. Here's the thing. Urban Triage, you've all made it about her because it's so easy to make it about one person. Mm-hmm. If you talk about Urban Triage as a whole, as a group of folks who are doing this work to be a service, it's not, attacking that is a harm that you can't win, right?
And Urban Triage, we should say, is this housing assistance is one thing that they do. Yeah. They have a farm.
Yeah, they have a lot of things. It's not all they do.
As their name implies, they do like rapid response to racism. Like if your kid is...
And it's wraparound care and access and administration.
If your kid runs into a racist incident at school, Brandi Grayson will herself be in the principal's office the next day.
Yeah.
Like that's what Urban Triage does.
Yeah, it's wraparound.
That's why it's called
assistance. Yeah, that's what it is, right? And so there's just this level of... like, I'm entitled to tell you how to do this and get this approval from you and to give you this criticism without context or, and you have to trust that I'm coming from a good place. And there is no recognition or reflection of like, do you not hear how entitled, like, why do you feel entitled to this? What is it for which your experience is making you feel like they owe you something? They don't owe you this. Now, there is a process for which folks who are nonprofits who get awarded these contracts, right? Do the due diligence of understanding that process. And if there's a criticism about the process, go after the process. Why are you going after Urban Triage? If you are concerned about the process, and why is it not focused on the process?
And that's what you hinted at.
And the
before.
procedure.
That's a basic journalistic thing. Is like, okay, this thing seems unusual. Is it unusual? That's a fundamental question as a journalist you have to ask. So, is Brandi Grayson's salary unusually high? Because that Jeff Wagon.
And in comparison to other nonprofits who do this work, is it?
It is. Okay. Bit. Not as egregious, but also it is higher than I did this because I'm a journalist because I
That's
do this.
The work.
And this is what Jason Cuevas did not do. I actually looked
this is what he was not mentored to do. That's the other thing too, though. Let's also acknowledge, like, maybe he's newer. I don't know everybody in town.
I will say he's the assignment editor and doesn't do a lot of investigative journalism.
Okay, cool. So but was he mentored to do this work? Or was there
any editor who said?
Were there?
Well, Nick, you filed a story. I said, it needs a little bit more things. Here's a couple of extra calls to make. You made the calls and we improved the story together, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it works. Yeah. And nobody did that at Channel 3,
anyway, so let's go back to the...
And y'all, the story I wrote that Rob edited before he edited it was an absolute supernova of editorial by me. So you've not ever read a hit piece like the hit piece I wrote about these three guys.
And I like unhitted it. But that's how it's supposed to work. But also... what I did was it took me like an hour to do while you were making those extra calls. I went on ProPublica, which thank God for ProPublica. It has
great site.
Their nonprofit navigator. And I looked up every nonprofit that currently has a Health and Human Services contract with Dane County. And there's over 100 contractors. More than half of them are not nonprofits. So I can't see any information about their CEO salaries. But I got all the CEO salaries of all those nonprofits, many of which are very, very small. Like they have like a $12,000 contract. So, their CEOs making basically a part-time wage. Some of them are much higher than Brandi's.
Sure.
Some of them are in the $350,000 range for their salary because they're managing $37 million budgets. Or whatever. But then I also looked at executive compensation as a percentage of their budget. And Brandi's salary, just in pure dollars, is higher than average, but their percentage of compensation of their budget that goes to executive compensation is really low. It's normally about 7%, on average, 7% of these organizations' budget goes to executive compensation. Urban Triage is 2.9.
Okay, look, see? Context. As part of journalism, who knew? But that's what I'm saying. Like, we just feel entitled to create these, like, dramas without giving and doing the homework and the work to give actual context for why this might be an issue, and instead deflect to this other like.
And the other question that didn't get asked, that we should get asked, is that $100,000 threshold question. That was like kind of the big gotcha in the story.
It's not a gotcha.
Does that happen a lot?
Yeah.
Is this a systemic procedural problem that maybe should be addressed, or is this Brandi getting special treatment? Yeah. Either of those is probably newsworthy. But let's find out which it is. Let's just assume that it's Brandi getting special treatment. And here's
the thing. Brandi can't make them do that if it is somebody who's giving something to Brandi. Like that's not what's happening here. If there's a systemic issue with regards to process, why isn't there a conversation about the process? Why isn't there work around the process? Why aren't you all just saying like, look, Urban Triage is getting these things, but I'm not concerned about Urban Triage getting these things because they submitted a proposal just like everybody else did. My question and concern is about the process and how we're doing these things. Don't deflect to Urban Triage and Brandi. Deflect to do because it's easy. It's so easy to do it. And it's lazy as heck to do it that way.
Well, that's the thing.
Do the homework.
Jeff Wagon was talking to you. He called you back right away from the county board supervisor. And if the $100,000 threshold is the problem, why are you talking about her social media videos? Yeah. Why are you talking about her salary? He literally used the word. He literally said to you, her behavior is my concern.
So it's not about the contract then.
Right.
It really is just about the person because it gets you the headlines that you want to see and creates this either or scenario, right? Where like, bad versus good, black versus white, whether you recognize it or not, that's what they're trying to do. And it's deflection. And it's, as we think about things that are happening at national levels, we tell you all the time, local matters because you're seeing it locally too. And that's what's happening locally as well.
Yep. We were just going to set the table, but we really got into it.
I know.
So let's take a break.
There's no setting the table with Sean Burke.
And we will continue this conversation with Dana Pellebon right after this. And we're back, and joining us now, someone at the center of this whole story, Urban Triage Board Chair, former County Board Supervisor, and all-around great person, Dana Pellebon. How you doing, Dana?
Hey, it's great to be back.
We love that you're here. We're excited that you're here, and we hope you're able to provide some perspective from the lens that is, as someone who's part of Urban Triage.
Absolutely.
Can you just tell us, like, how this all went down? Like, the precipitating event being that Channel 3000 article. Or was there more before that?
So there's been years of stuff before this. So this has been a multi-year harassment campaign of Brandi Grayson and Urban Triage, spearheaded by Sean Burke.
Which is what we've kind of mentioned. Yeah. Yeah. But can you characterize that a little bit more specifically?
So, and this has been talked about in a public space. So I'm not saying anything that people don't already know.
Right.
Sean Burke received services from Urban Triage, even though they claimed they did not receive services. What it is that we stopped Sean Burke from doing was harassing the staff. And that's pretty important to note.
Right.
So, the idea that they did not receive what it is that we were able to give them is incorrect. They have characterized that incorrectly to fit their narrative. And as Brandi said in their live, everything is open records. So if people really want to know, open records request it. And again, we are very firm on our staff does not get harassed. There are no racial slurs that are to be used in spaces. There are no direct threats. People are very careful to not say that, but implied threats. So none of that is allowed in spaces. And you'll find with any business that is not something that's acceptable, regardless of who it is that is obtaining
Care or
yes,
support, right?
Absolutely. So, even at the nonprofit that I run, there have been people that we have not allowed in space because they have used racial slurs and they have harassed staff. So, the precipitating event was this person didn't like the fact that boundaries were put in place to protect Black folks. And the entitlement then that this person has had ever since that point has been a multi-year harassment campaign that then gets added on to by other people who don't understand what's happening or who have poor intentions in the first place. So that's where this started. This is years of this harassment.
Yeah, and the I guess when I said precipitate event, the reason we're talking about it right now today is like a week ago this article came out because which as we mentioned was Sean found somebody to do it after contacted many other reporters, some of whom one of whom picked up for the Cap Times last year, right? Because as Nick mentioned, somebody who kind of didn't know the background. And then now Channel 3, he gets Channel 3 to do it. And along the way, he's also picked up some other allies who have their own motivations. Yeah. Jeff Wagons and Nino Amato.
Well, Jeff told me, Dana, that Jeff Wagons said that Astra and our Dane County staff have lost their ability to manage Urban Triage as a third-party vendor, and they're advocating for this vendor, and that is wrong. Is that your take or something you've observed?
Absolutely not. What they are doing is combating the false narratives that are put into place by people like Sean Burke and Supervisor Wygan. The reality is that there is and has not been any issues with the contract. There's been no issues. And understand that the contracts that are coming from the county are reimbursable contracts. So anything that is spent, there has to be a receipt for it. There has to be proof that this is money that was spent, why it was spent. And in addition, when we submit a budget, that budget has to match what the money is, and then our spending of that grant has to match to the budget, which then has to have receipts. And then it is reimbursed. So if there's anything that was not supposed to be in the grant, was not supposed to be spended with that money, it was not in the original budget, it doesn't get spent.
Right. And I want to underline that because we've had reimbursable grants before. There's basically two different kinds. For folks who don't maybe know the nonprofit world, you can get a grant that's just they write you a check, you get the money, and then do what you want with it. Yeah. We love those grants. But there's also reimbursable grants where you basically say you have this much money to spend. We're not
on this very specific thing.
On this very specific thing.
In this very specific way, too.
Yep. You spend it first. Then you tell us how much you spent. And if we agree,
after you show us the receipts,
then we will give you that money back. Yeah. Right? That's the kind of contract this was. So
that is the kind of contract that the Dane County contract is.
And there is no sense, nobody has even alleged, as far as I know, maybe you can tell me different, that there's been any impropriety with this contract.
Well, Sean tries to allege these things, but again, there's
proof.
No proof.
Yeah.
And the thing that gets frustrating for those of us who do this work is that somebody can go to a reporter and say anything that they want to say.
Yeah, we know.
And they
it happens
do
a
not
lot.
have to have any proof to say whatever it is that they want to say. And I will also address Supervisor Wygan because he mentioned the zoo. And here's the difference between the zoo and Urban Triage. First off, don't compare a Black-led organization to the zoo.
I can't.
Already racist. Second, the zoo does not go through the auditing process that a private organization does. The zoo does not have reimbursable grants like the private organization does. And the zoo has very clear issues as delineated. Even on my first term on the county board, one of the first things that I did was call for an investigation of the zoo because there were rampant complaints with proof, including a deferred prosecution agreement in the city of Seattle for our zoo director.
That's right.
And there's none of that with Urban Triage.
Well, the zoo is a county department. Like, how is
And
it
the
even
zoo
comparable?
is a county department, which you should audit county departments,
Absolutely.
right?
That's the
Speaking of
He
audit,
did mention the zoo in his interview
doing the
with
zoo thing.
me. Maybe, Dana, you missed the outcome of that while you were in Puerto Rico with Brandi. Did you guys have a fund of $16,000 from county money with which you vacationed
Absolutely
in Puerto
not.
Rico?
No, and because you would have to prove that.
Again, they would have gotten receipts.
But the way that we
and not
deflect-
paid it until
Yeah.
after, and if they didn't want to pay it, they could say that this
We're
was
not
not.
paying it. This is not appropriate for the grant.
This
that
is
we're
not.
raising.
That's just
Like,
not how reimbursable grants
So
work.
a board retreat with a strategic planner, a well-respected strategic planner here in our community, was not funded by any taxpayer dollars on any level whatsoever. Because guess what? We are not the first board to go on a retreat out of town, but we're the first board of Black people
There it is.
and a Black-led organization that gets questioned on it, and questioned on it by a white man who has harassed and used racial slurs and has done widespread damage. So I'm sorry that you all don't like that Urban Triage operates like every other nonprofit in our community. But you don't like it because the person that is leading it is Black. They are loud, and they are truthful with that loudness.
And anybody who is, and I encourage folks, like, look, if you are like, well, maybe they should go through this kind of process of where we audit them, or we should question these things. Just ask yourself, why aren't you questioning other nonprofits that you are aware of, right? Yeah. Why not? Like, if you think Urban Triage should be under this kind of scrutiny, then every nonprofit that you benefit from, that you support, that you see, that you hear about, where is that scrutiny for them?
And I'm going to encourage people to go on ProPublica, because there are audits for other large organizations that are horrific. They are horrific.
I mentioned before you got here, I mentioned I was looking at ProPublica for comparison purposes because
to just point out, because the salary conversation comes up too.
Yeah, and I will say some number. One thing that ProPublica does is they look at the 990s, which are these sort of Byzantine-looking tax forms. They're kind of hard to read, but ProPublica, doing the Lord's work, like sifted those in a way that is very digestible. Yeah. But they do. Right on the page, if you click on the nonprofit name on the ProPublica Nonprofit Navigator Explorer, there's red flags and yellow flags.
Yeah.
If there have been issues identified with like poor internal controls or et cetera, any number of yellow flags and red flags, I would say probably about 10% of the contracts I looked at that Dane County is currently engaged in had either a red or a yellow flag, which didn't necessarily mean anything specific to Dane County. Just that an auditor at some point has found like their internal controls aren't adequate or whatever. Urban Triage had nothing like that.
Right. And so why aren't we actually going after organizations that have serious issues with their audits?
Right. Speaking of audits, though, Jeff's one of Jeff's things, Jeff Wagon's things, is he wants to audit Urban Triage. I don't even know what that means exactly.
Yeah. Well, because there isn't a mechanism for the county to do that unless there is impropriety, and there is no impropriety. Zero. None. And if you want to audit every contract, then by all means, audit every contract.
Urban Triage, as a nonprofits, have to be. They just audit it for different reasons. We've undergone audits.
Yeah. So we have to every year do an annual audit with an independent firm. Yeah. In addition, because of this enormous amount of misinformation and lies, quite frankly, we have then undergone audits from other grants and other granting organizations. And guess what? Those were all fine. They were all fine.
And here's the thing. If they weren't, it would have been a story.
Yeah.
Like, it would have been a story. Somebody else would have leaked that and made that into a story. Like, let's be honest. If there was anything misappropriation to find within anything that Urban Triage is doing, it would have been a story.
So the story here is the widespread harassment of Black women leaders in our community. Brandi's not the first. Brandi is not the last. And Brandi's not the only one. Brandi gets it the most because there are concerted actors here who are making sure that the work done by a Black-led organization is scrutinized on a level that no one else in our community is.
And I think before you even came, we said entitlement. We used that language because it does feel like folks have this entitlement toward Brandi and to Urban Triage and to Black women in terms of like trying to say like we are entitled to this information or to have access to you in these ways. And I don't know that they recognize right now the language they're using is like, well, we're just trying to do best in this way. And I'm like, no, that's still racism. That the level of entitlement that you feel that is unearned, has nothing to do with doing right, is all about your need to control folks that aren't like you.
That is correct.
That aren't you.
And let's be real. The need to control Black bodies. The need to control specifically Black bodies in our community.
Jeff Wigand challenges yourself and anyone, Dana, to form examples of any time that he has engaged in anti-LGBT or anti-Black behavior.
That was it right now.
First off, the fact that it felt entitled to walk into a closed office to an uninvited event, that entitlement is racist. That entitlement is racist. That he believes that he can and should be anywhere because he's decided. Because he hasn't walked into any other offices when they are closed and they are having a private event. Does he go there? No, but he does feel that he can come here.
I never heard of that.
If you take a look at, for example, the sanctuary bill that we wrote for trans folks here in our community, and this is when I was on the county board, not only did he say things that were anti-LGBTQ and anti-Black, but he brought a whole slew of people to say horrific things on the floor. Horrific things on the floor about our trans community. And the fact that I was on committees with Jeff Wigand, and it's funny how rules only applied for Jeff Wigand when I was talking. But, when I would then say those same rules for him, then that was unfair, right? So, Jeff Wigand can hide behind whatever racist ideas that he has and act as if he's just doing his job. Well, his job is not to control Black bodies. His job is to look at the resolutions that are coming across his desk and deciding whether or not he is going to approve them or not approve them. His job is to work in the committees to ensure that how Dane County is doing their work is in line with our budgetary items and with our vision for Dane County. And I will say he's doing a really poor job of that.
Now, Nino Amato has downplayed his role other than to say that he is accusing the Dane County Board of commingling funds and being in a...
It was accusing Urban Triage.
Right, of commingling funds and saying that Heidi and Astra are clearly in cahoots with...
Health and Human Needs Chair Heidi Wagleitner and Astra, who's the interim director of the department, that he's saying that they are advocating for Urban Triage rather than administering the contracts properly.
So let's talk about Nino Amato. Nino Amato, anytime that he feels like there is something in the news or he has something to say, like a proverb that he has made up, sends it to our county board and sends it to our common council to talk about how he don't like Brandi Grayson and what it is that she's doing. And now, because I am defending Brandi Grayson, my name is in it too. So let's be real. Nino Amato has zero proof that there is any funds being commingled with anything. Because I will tell you, and I spoke to a reporter yesterday or Tuesday, and they came to me and they said, Dana, I want you to know that I did FOIA, Freedom of Information request, to the Dane County about all of these things. He goes, you know what it turned up? Nothing. And I said, well, of course not, because there's nothing to show up. Mm-hmm. But if you get the right people to keep recycling your lies, it makes it seem like there is something. Mm-hmm. So I would like for Nino Amato to come up with an actual proof. Now, and if they want to talk about the text messages that were going on between Heidi and Astra, because that's the only information that they have, it is, I don't understand why it is that Jeff Wygand keeps asking for an audit when we have supplied him with the audits. That is wild. That is unnecessary. And let's be real, Heidi and Astra can understand how racism works also and can say that this isn't okay.
Mm-hmm. And let's just be clear that that audit goalpost is going to keep moving.
Yeah, because now they're going to expect even more from Urban Triage.
Right, so we'll give you an audit. Well, that's not a county audit. And then we'll give you a county audit.
Brandi said she did an audit that was a federal audit.
Because that's required of nonprofits.
Nonprofits have to get audited all the time.
At a federal and state level, and county and city, if they, depending on whether they get grants or et cetera, et cetera. Like they're always being audited.
Right.
And yet we have this expectation that it must be different for Urban Triage. Mm-hmm. Well, no. It just whatever the audit showed didn't show what you wanted it to show it, so it must have been different.
Right, and if the county did do an audit for some reason, which, like you said, there's not even a mechanism to do that, but let's say there was, and it came back just clean, they'd find some other thing that they needed instead.
That is correct.
Like LinkedIn.
They'd be like, but her LinkedIn.
My LinkedIn's a mess too. I don't know what's on there. I don't remember.
Dana, is your LinkedIn up to date? What would happen if we compared it to your resume?
I'm a Virgo, so yes.
I'm a Libra.
But also, let me just say, I just ran for a major office.
Oh, yeah.
So I had to go through my LinkedIn really carefully to make sure that my dates were very on point and correct. But I literally had to go through emails like, when did I join this board? I remember it was June. Well, then it was July, so I had to adjust because, again, LinkedIn is a social media space for people who are looking for jobs and or looking for employees. Mm-hmm. It is Facebook for business.
It is.
And if you have everything on your Facebook as correct, then bless it on you. But I will tell you, when I posted about this issue on my Facebook page, there were several nonprofit leaders of organizations here in our community that said, I haven't looked at my LinkedIn in forever. There's no way that my LinkedIn is up to date with what it is that my resume is. Want to know why? LinkedIn is a social media space. Yep. Full stop.
Yep. I mean, what dates? Look, I don't even remember when we're married, Rob and I. And we've been married for a long time, and that's all I know.
You remember your anniversary.
Do I remember anniversary?
Never.
What?
I still have to look up people's birthdays that are in my family. I'm going to be honest with y'all.
I'm busy. I have things to do. He married up. It is not my job to remember anniversary days.
Wow. Well,
I did an interview where I put my son as 22 years old and he's 20. Like, come on, you guys. This is a part of the racism, though. Yeah. It is the expectations of Black women in particular, because I'm going to call out of Black women in our community in particular to be perfect. To be always on point, to never make a misstep, to never make a mistake, and we don't expect that of anybody else. And I saw that in my campaign on a very real sense. And that was not even with me making missteps. It was the fact that I dared open my mouth as a Black woman. I dared to say things. I dared to run against a powerful white woman. And let me tell you, people said to me, "How dare you?" As if I do not have the right, as every other person in our community, to engage in these conversations and to even run for office. But we are so clear in this community that we need to control the Black women in this community, and we need to control the Black bodies in this community and make sure that they know what their place is. And we are really clear about what their place is, because we have the worst outcomes for Black people in Dane County, almost across the board, across the nation. So if you want to know how it is that our county feels about Black people, why don't you look at the outcomes of what it is the Black people in our county have to deal with. And there you have your answer.
Even when they're perfect. Even when they're perfect, we still have them jump through hoops. We still want them to do something else. It still isn't enough, though. Like, even when Black women are perfect, it isn't enough. It never is. And it's this constant and infuriating and conversation that folks are having like this and being affirmed in these journalistic spaces is problematic as hell.
Yes, it is.
Excuse me, as heck. Sorry, Henry.
Nino, you heard her swear.
Right. Is there going to be an email to Common Council about that?
He made it clear I was going to lose my job for writing this article, Dana.
Well, I guess that he should be more concerned about himself than other people, like making sure that you're in the right district that you're running for. Why don't we start there?
Not a bad place to start. Dana, thank you so much for bringing your valuable perspective to this and for being on fire as always.
And giving more context to what has been going on, the years of this constant barrage of again, like racist spotlight from one person that then got other folks to kind of come aboard for their own kind of racist.
And can I say one more thing?
Yeah.
Because I want to humanize this. Can you imagine the stress, the pressure, the pain, the uncertainty of what it is that is happening specifically to Urban Triage, the executive director of Urban Triage, and the staff of Urban Triage, when they are under attack every day? Imagine going to work every single day knowing that people hate you. And they hate you because you are there serving the community. And that they are looking for you to make any misstep. No one can live under that amount of scrutiny. So as I talk in our spaces about healing and support for people, and I watch the Black women around me in pain every single day, and my friends and my family who watch me, my staff who are all very concerned about my mental health, because they say clearly nobody goes through what it is that you all go through. Nobody does. And yet you have to get up, and every single day you have to show up in the exact same way, and you have to not be too angry. You have to not be too this. You have to not be too that. And at some point, I just said, I'm just going to be myself, because you're all going to come after us no matter what it is that we do. And it is heartbreaking, and it is horrendous the amount of pressure and stress that is put on Black women in this community. And this has got to stop. This has got to stop. We look for outs. I, as a Black woman in this community that have spent 30 years working my behind off behind the scenes, I am now looking for an out, because I can't live under this amount of pressure and horrific racism coming from what is said to be the most liberal place in our state. No, we are not. And we have got to stop using that as a blanket of we are okay, because we are not. And the women that are running these spaces are not okay. And it is because of the citizens of Dane County. And that has got to be said. Hands off Brandi Grayson. Hands off the Black women that are doing the work and doing it excellently, because we know that we have to be better than everybody else to get to the spaces that we are. So don't come at me with mediocre white men to tell me that I am not doing my job when you have done nothing. And there is the Black Woman Who Is Angry podcast 101.
Well, thank you for bringing that. That was it's just so important, and it's really important also, I think, for us in the media and other folks in leadership positions to stop giving these mediocre white men space. Like Sean Burke basically shopped around for a reporter to finally tell a story, and a couple of them finally did.
I cannot stress enough that Sean Burke is just a person, just some guy. Huge revelation.
Stop giving him space and stop affirming him.
Yes. Right, because without us amplifying him, like he's like you say, he's just a guy. He's just a guy who's harassing staff, who's causing all sorts of harm, but ultimately just a guy, and he's been allowed now to amass these allies who actually do have power to amplify the harassment. Right. We're gonna take a short break to decompress, and we're gonna ask a question.
Back. I'm a little sad that Nick had to go, but Nick isn't here for this portion. But Dana stayed, and wants to hang out with us.
That's a decent trade.
Yeah. So the question of the week is: it's a zombie apocalypse. You, of course, have your family with you, everyone that you love and care about. But what 3 additional people do you want on your side to survive?
Oh, 3 additional.
Yeah.
I was gonna bring my middle niece regardless.
Oh, well, yeah.
She laughs at survive.
All my jokes. Yeah. So who is it you're bringing along or amplifying because they're going to help you survive through this?
Dana Pellebon. I just have a good feeling right now.
All right, Rob. Who else is on yours?
Okay. In all seriousness, Joel Miller, the protagonist of The Last of Us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, I don't know who that is.
Which I have, our child Amelia and I have zombie apocalypse on our mind because it's The Last of Us season 2 happening right now. You're watching that with us as well. You're not quite as into it as we are.
No, I'm also playing Candy Crush while we're watching it. So I'm not playing Candy Crush.
And Amelia and I are trying not to make faces to spoil it for you.
I know. It's driving me crazy that the two of you, I can side-eye you two, and you two are dying to tell me things. I'm
because this is
ruin it and watch me walk away.
Maybe the best video game adaptation ever. We both played the game. I've played the game multiple times, both parts of the game. Mm-hmm. And so Amelia and I are just like, I
know,
like whispering about.
Yeah, it's driving.
Can you
crazy.
believe what they did that? Or what did they get?
It was. By the way, it's only the first episode, and you two are annoying me.
Yeah, and we made a podcast about it because we just couldn't stop talking about it. So Joel Miller, being the protagonist of that game, who is like the toughest zombie killer in the world, so I definitely need him on my side. And I think probably like Jimmy Page.
Who's that?
Led Zeppelin guitarist, just to entertain me. I don't need him to survive. I just need entertainment.
Oh my god.
Play songs, Jimmy.
All right.
I think that's what I do.
I didn't say that you would be leading the group and then you can demand things of people like play songs. But you can't.
I would lead the group.
Okay.
That's not a negotiation.
I don't.
I'll be reporting on the apocalypse. So
With two.
No, and just writing it longhand probably. Anyway, Omar.
I would not bring the rest of my family. I'm just going to say none of them
They would
are
slow
a
me
part
down.
of it.
You're leaving them in Iowa.
But I will bring my middle niece, Malaya, because she is funny and she also laughs at all my jokes. And I just need that constant affirmation all the time. Because I tell a lot of bad jokes, but she finds them all funny. So, number one priority, my niece.
Uh-huh.
I would bring my friend who has recently become a doctor, so he's going to be a little, eager to treat everything. He'll have some fresh knowledge, keep me alive. Someone who can actually survive. I would imagine some type of UFC fighter. Who's the guy in the Olympics? The Turkish shooter. I think great aim.
The guy who won the silver medal with one hand in his pocket.
One hand,
just cool,
just no
collective.
extra equipment, just some guy.
Yeah, he walked in.
And he won the silver medal in the pistol shooting.
Basically.
Yeah,
him.
Excellent choice. Excellent choice.
All right, Dana, you're up.
So the first person I would bring would be the scientist from World War Z who
Oh,
found
yes.
the cure
Mm-hmm.
for the
Yes.
zombie virus.
Uh-huh.
Because science matters, friends.
Yeah.
The second person I would bring is Godzilla.
Yep.
Because all I need is radiation breath. And there
take
you
care
go.
of
First off, Godzilla's always on my team and walks with me and talks with me. When I see 2 footprints in the sand, it's because Godzilla is carrying me along with him.
2 very large footprints.
Yep, very large footprints. And then the third would be my therapist. Because, oh my God.
The trauma.
I'm going to have all of my family there too? Like, that is a mixture of...
It is an addition to The Last of Us. Not to bring this back to The Last of Us, but in the Catherine O'Hara plays Joel Miller's therapist.
Nice.
In the therapist, not part of the game, but
way to plug that show.
Yeah,
I'm glad that you're here for
but
that.
I think at some point somebody writing that show was like, these people need therapy. And you definitely right
I
on
would
that.
like Catherine O'Hara to then be my therapist. So we're good.
We're all good. Look, I only thought of one thing and only one additional person, and that is somebody with a boat. As someone pointed out to me yesterday, folks, or a couple days ago, folks, like the zombies aren't coming on the water. They ain't on boats.
Swim.
They can't swim. So if we know somebody with a boat, that's all we need.
Kevin Costner's Waterworld.
Oh, there you go, Kevin Costner.
Done.
But then you have to befriend a Republican and
But he loved Whitney.
I had a boat.
never.
Don't
There we go.
Oh, there we
Never.
go. Oh, again,
Exceptions
the answer
to
is,
the rule.
That's what we need. Somebody with a boat. And that's
and
it.
Kevin Costner with gills.
Kevin Costner. I forgot he had gills in that.
Exactly.
That was a choice, that movie.
World War Z.
Oh, no.
I don't think it mentions this in the movie. But in the book,
but-
there are. I just googled this because I remembered it. There are 30 million zombies alive on the ocean floor.
Oh, forget
That's
it.
right. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Don't go
Dang it.
swimming.
Wait, but can they swim? What
No, they don't really swim. They just they wandered into the ocean.
Oh, and they died?
and
Or they develop gills like Waterworld?
No, they just are on the ocean floor. But the virus is keeping them alive, keeping the body animated because the viruses don't need air.
That's right.
Oh, this is so complicated. Y'all, just make zombies without the complication of science.
But in the movie they can run.
Yeah.
That's not so much in the book. They don't run in the book, but in the movies.
I mean, that made it frightening.
World War Z actually used to be one of the movies I used to watch when I was having a bad day.
Yeah.
Yeah?
That was pre.
Here's
Brad Pitt
people
used to
having-
be my whoopee until Brad Pitt was a
Yeah.
not great person.
Yeah.
But up until that point, it was
Well,
It's
Brad
the
Pitt
not only-
running through sweatily with his long hair, saving the world.
there's also something to be said for watching people having a worse day than you are.
yeah. There is.
Which everybody in
is.
World War Z is having a much worse day than we are.
Yep. All right, friends. Thank you so much for joining us, Dana. We will be back next week.
365 Amplified is produced and edited by me, Rob Chappell, and is a production of 365 Media Foundation, a nonprofit, local, independent media organization in Madison, Wisconsin. Wherever you're listening to this right now, hit the subscribe or follow button to get new episodes every Friday. And between episodes, get your latest news at madison365.org and follow us on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Threads. Wherever you get your news, we'll be there.